If you've been going to the gym, you might be tempted with the idea of making your own workout plan. After all, how difficult can it be? Pencil in 58 sets of bench press and bicep curls, and that should be gravy. Well, unfortunately, making a workout program is a bit more complicated. And in this video, I'm gonna highlight reasons why you might do more harm than good if you try to do things on your own. Now, I'm sure you definitely know that there's more to training than just building your chest and biceps. Six-pack abs are important too. No doubt, one of the biggest hurdles to making your own program is first and foremost choosing the right exercises. So we'll talk about that first. I won't belabor this point too much. It's pretty obvious that proper exercise selection is required in any decent workout program. But you can only select the right exercises if first you actually know not only how to do all of them, but actually know what they do in terms of your development. Generally, you need to pick exercises that properly target your muscles in a balanced manner. Yes, it's a meme at this point, but it's very common for people to overdo certain exercises, aka the top-heavy bros with pencil legs you see at the gym. Now, there's nothing wrong with emphasizing some muscle groups more than others, especially if they are indeed lacking, but a good workout program still needs to be fundamentally balanced across the board. So that means you need to fundamentally understand the different exercises and the muscle groups they not only target, but how they target them. Is the muscle group a prime mover or more of a supporting muscle? That can really make a difference in terms of activation and stimulation, thus adaptation. Choosing the right exercises is kind of a whole planning thing all on its own. And even then, this is really just the first step to exercise selection. Next, you gotta think about things like properly grouping exercises together to be trained on the same session. Are you gonna go for something like a full body approach where each muscle is targeted at least once, or are you going to aim for more of a split, like doing upper body exercises one day and lower body exercises the next? Also, you have to consider the amount of days you can train per week. Your program is going to look drastically different if you're training only 3 days a week versus training 6 days. Which brings up the next point of targeting each muscle group frequently enough. Science suggests that you do want to target each muscle group at least 2 times a week, maybe even 3. So you have to play a bit of Tetris when you're selecting exercises for each day, and things can get complicated very fast. Then, of course, there's programming the amount of reps and sets for each exercise. This will largely depend on your own personal goals. Although they can be somewhat similar, there will be enough differences between a strength-oriented program and a hypertrophy-oriented program that you do need to make a good amount of adjustments, especially in terms of reps and sets. You don't want to be cranking out 28 reps at 40% 1RM on your barbell squats if you're gunning for that triple bodyweight squat max. As you can see, exercise selection can get very heavy and complicated. I didn't want to belabor this point, but it really goes to show you that it ain't no walk in the park. And we didn't even touch on things like exercise order or exercise alternatives for those days that the bench bros all show up at the same time. In short, exercise selection requires a lot of structure that experts took years and years to refine through trial and error and a dose of science. This alone should completely scratch the idea of making your own program from scratch if you never did before. But now let's talk about another big factor, and that is properly programming progression. Well, first, you gotta figure out how you're gonna track progression. There are many options, but one people are most likely familiar with is volume. Now, I won't do a full breakdown of volume in this video. All I'll say is that if you don't know what volume is, then you really don't wanna make your own program. Other than volume, you can also track things like strength, body composition, and even velocity to evaluate progress. And once you get all this tracking data, you then have to know how to interpret it. Usually, if you see some solid linear progression, that means you probably want to stick with your current training program until things start slowing down. But if you're already running into progression issues, then you have to figure out why that's happening and then make the proper adjustments. If you don't and instead carry on with your program as is, then all you're going to end up with is more useless data and, most importantly, less and less gains. In my opinion, properly programming progression is what separates a truly and genuinely great program from all the other generic cookie cutters. To figure out these adjustments or even create auto-regulation formulas so that the program adjusts itself in real time are things that training experts have taken years and years to figure out. If you can pull that off in your first attempt, then that's truly amazing, and maybe you should start making some fitness videos yourself. Now, by this point, if you're still feeling confident about your non-existent programming skills, then let's jump into the next crucial factor, programming recovery. If you can't work out because your program has you feeling like crap, tired, and exhausted all the time, then that means your program sucks. Now, programming recovery isn't just about giving yourself rest days in between sessions or taking a random-ass deload week just because you failed to hit your numbers 3 sessions in a row. There's a lot more to managing recovery and more specifically managing fatigue. Fatigue is a crucial part of the game and very, very important for creating muscular adaptations. It is also very, very important for you to understand that fatigue accumulates both in the short and long term. A good workout program will be able to effectively manage both cases. Since fatigue is a critical part of adaptation, you do need to program your workouts in a way to intentionally accumulate fatigue. But you also need to know when to back off and utilize things like tapering and properly deloading with the goal of creating a supercompensation effect. Again, if you don't know what tapering, deloading, or supercompensation mean, then it's time to stop. Now, there are still many other programming factors you need to consider, but this video is going to take forever if we go into all of them, so I'll just cover one more big point, and that is the issue of bias. In other words, you just cannot trust yourself to make the best programming decisions. And this goes for even experts and people training for a very long time. You'll often find super experienced people working with a coach not because they don't know what they're doing, but because they know they have blind spots they cannot detect themselves. Personally, I know this is a big problem for myself as much as I know that there are other exercises I can do at the gym. For some reason, I always end up just doing deadlifts, even on chest days, weird stuff. We are all probably better off putting our programming into the hands of someone else. If not for the reason for not knowing exactly what to do, then at least for the sake of holding ourselves accountable. The best programs out there will have a good balance of programming in things you want to do, but also things you should do. And with someone else running the show, we don't have the option of just deadlifting every day and continue to ignore our weaknesses. And yes, as difficult as it is to believe when looking at all this magnificence, I too have weaknesses. But that's my thoughts about making your own workout program. Now, don't get me wrong, it is possible to make your own that can get you at least some gains, but it doesn't mean it's a good program. You're very likely leaving a lot more gains on the table, especially if you haven't considered all the things we talked about in this video. But let me know what you think. Also, if you need help finding a program, then come check out the Picturefit Discord community. We talk about programs all the time. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a fatiguing thumbs up and share it with your program-loving friends. Subscribe for more. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to get your protein.